Hey everyone, this is Alicia Katz-Pollock from Royalwise.com, and today I want to show you my latest in my series, Look What I Found, where I take a look at new features in QuickBooks Online. And today I'm going to break down the mysterious cash flow account that's been appearing in QuickBooks Online. It's a brand new feature. It's just coming out. It's got some growing to do, but for business owners, it is an amazing opportunity to really take control of their checking accounts. So let me show you about the cash flow bank account, the cash flow manager, and how it works. Here's all the things that we're going to take a look at in QuickBooks Online's new cash flow planner. We're going to talk about who can use it. We'll talk about the checking account itself and the envelopes. We'll take a look at how Merchant Services integrates with it and the cash flow planner. Let's start with the most important part, who can use it? So it's been a little bit of a mystery to any of the bookkeepers who are using this because we don't actually see the cash flow planner in our QuickBooks Online for accountants. It only shows up on the business owner's side. I'm not 100% clear if it's due to who is the master administrator or just if the login is a business user, but it's true that you don't see it on QBOA at all. So it's not attached to your books. It's not we can't even see it from the client's side. So the only way to really get in and play with it or dig around with it is by logging in as a regular user. If you go into the sample files, you can kind of see that it's there, but because it's a sample file and you can't actually apply for the bank account, you're limited there as well. So I'm going to be showing it to you from the perspective of a business owner. If you are a bookkeeper who has a client using the cash flow planner, you still can see it in the bank feed. So you can see all the transactions as they come in and code them accordingly. You just don't have access to the checking account, the envelopes, and the interface. So let's start by taking a look at the checking account and its terms. I'm going to do that by going to the website. So where I am right now is in cash flow over here on the left-hand side. Again, if you're using QuickBooks Online for accountants, you're not going to see it. It's only on the business side. And when I come in here, I see a little alert about QuickBooks Cash, your new business bank account. And I'll show you the application in a minute, but let's start by seeing what's included with it. So these are all the benefits of using it. The first is that you have envelopes, and the envelopes also earn interest, and that's going to allow you to set aside money into different categories, and we're going to talk about that extensively in a few minutes. You can also use it in ATMs. So over here, it says down at the bottom that you can get cash at over 1,900 all-point ATMs. There's no fee for doing that, although if you do use an ATM that's not on that network, then there is, I think it's a $3 fee. There is no fee there's no monthly fees at all. There's no transfer fees. There's no minimums. And in fact, not only are there no fees associated with it, but you also get 1% interest on all of your balances. And that 1% interest is both at the main account and in all of the envelopes. Another benefit is instant deposits. So if somebody is paying you through Merchant Services, either by credit card or ACH, which is essentially electronic check, those generally have a wait time of anywhere from 2 to 5 days, depending on your account and some other factors. But one of the benefits of using it is that if you're signed up for this program, then they're actually going to give you the ability to use their instant deposits feature, which is a way of getting the money immediately or within 30 minutes instead of waiting the number of days. So that's one of the perks of using the cash flow accounts. And for some people, that's really important. As I mentioned before, you do get that debit card in your business name, and the account is FDIC insured for up to $250,000. So those are some of the benefits right there. If we scroll down a little further, we get a little bit more detail about it. The bank that's behind it, the backer for the fintech, financial technology, is Green Dot Bank. And so as you're doing any transactions with your regular operating checking accounts, that's what you're going to see is Green Dot. And the rest of the details on this screen all covered some of the points that I made already. Now let's go back up and apply. We're not actually going to do a full application here, but I've done this with several of my clients and it literally takes minutes. They're going to ask you for your business information. They will ask you for your personal information, and they're just pulling this out of your already existing QuickBooks Online setup. So it's that fast. And then they'll ask you where you want the payments account to go. And as I said before, by default, the idea here is that all of your QuickBooks Payments Merchant Services are going to go into this account, which is what's going to source the funds on it. But you don't have to. You can use any other account that you would like. And then they'll give you their card and you say what you want the name on the card to be. That's literally the entire application. And so I would just say click QuickBooks Cash, and the approvals have come in within just a few minutes. Now, one of the questions I get from people is, what about paper checks? What if my clients are still sending me paper checks? And you've got a couple different options in that case. One is that you do have that ATM card, so you can go to an ATM and make your deposits there. The second is you can continue using your existing operating checking account and just put your paper checks into those and then make transfers if you need to. And the third option is that, you have that electronic check ability. So if you have a sales receipt or an invoice payment in your QuickBooks Online for your customer, you can go ahead and type in that checking information and accept it electronically that way. If you do it that way, you are subject to the 1% with a maximum of $10 fee on it. So you'd be losing a little bit of money, but for me, if it's just a couple dollars, that's better for me than putting the check in a drawer until I can go out to an ATM or go out to my bank and make that deposit. So, you can kind of decide how you want to manage your paper checks. Now, let's talk about the envelopes. The envelopes are separate sub-accounts of the checking account. And originally it was 5. I noticed the fine print today said 10. So they're, as I said before, they're always making adjustments to this. An envelope is a way of setting aside dedicated money that doesn't get touched. It's not just a sub-account where you're kind of saying, well, I'm setting aside this $10,000 for this thing. It really is kind of like a sub-account. You have to physically transfer the money into the envelope, and you also have to transfer the money back out of the envelope to make it liquid again. But that's right along the idea of profit first. If you're familiar with profit first, then you're going to understand this automatically. But if you're not, you should go look up profit first with Mike Michalowicz. And the idea is with profit first that you set aside money for different purposes, and they all even recommend like separate bank accounts. And this solves that need to have multiple bank accounts. But you can make an envelope just for payroll, and make an envelope just for taxes, and make an envelope just for equipment purchases. So you want to save up to get a new computer or a rainy day fund. So, but that way you can put the money aside, and then it doesn't become part of your operating capital. It really does stay completely separate. And one of the things that's actually cool about the envelopes is that if you make a payroll envelope, then it will actually run your QuickBooks payroll. If you're using payroll inside QuickBooks, it will turn to that employee payroll envelope to draw the money out before even touching the main level of the account. So that's pretty cool. So here's how the cash flow bank account and envelopes works. When you go into cash flow on the left-hand side, and again, this is only for the business users, the accountants don't get this ability. You get a grand total for all your cash in all of your checking accounts, not just this one. You can see how much is in your QuickBooks Cash account right here. If I click on View Account, it shows me recent transactions and activity right there. And this is kind of like the register. If you want to go use the bank register regularly, you would get there through the regular channels. There's also an option here to manage the account, which allows you to go in and see your account number and routing numbers, get your disclosures and your financial benefits as well. There's also even an option right here to find your local ATM. So here we go. We've got Walgreens, Rite Aid, and CVS stores. I've got one of each of those within 2 miles of here. So that'll make it easy to deposit checks or make cash withdrawals if I need to. Next is the envelopes. When you first start yours, they're going to make some suggestions like employee payroll or rainy day fund, but you can make any of them that you need. Some examples of things that I have is I have a PPP fund being held because I haven't yet applied for my forgiveness. And so this is money that if I have to give it back, I'm ready to do so. I've got my employee payroll envelope right here. And if I scroll over to the right, this is where I can make a new envelope. And let's go ahead and look at how that works. So there's a couple suggestions that they make right off the bat. Rainy day fund, so that if you have an unexpected emergency expense, you've got money set aside for it. If the business owner is not on payroll, then maybe you want to set aside money for them for their owner draws so that they can take money out of the company and actually be a successful business person that supports their family too. And then there's also something else. So you could do any of these. So if I click on something else, for example, and say next, then it gives me the chance to name it for what I want it to be. Like maybe I'll do Christmas bonus or something like that. And then you also have the option of setting aside goals. So you don't have to do this. It could just be a holding tank. But if you have a goal of putting away, $1,000 for Christmas bonuses or $3,000 to buy a new computer, you can say what your goal is and when you need it by. And then that way it will even track where you are along your goal. Now, I'm not going to create one right now, but this is the process that was used to create the ones that I have right now. So, for example, right now, Royalwise is sponsoring a scholarship fundraiser drive to create a scholarship account for BIPOC bookkeepers in Portland. It's Black, Indigenous people of color, to give them access to the Woodard Alliance. And so I'm holding money for that scholarship. And so I had $1,000 goal and we've already met our goal. And so that's what the dates and the goals are for. And what this allows me to do is separate out that money so that I can see all the money that was raised and set it aside so that there's no way I can possibly spend it unless I intentionally am trying to spend it. When I want to put money in and out of the envelopes, like I said, essentially they really are separate bank accounts. They're treated as siloed by the system. So if I click on transfer funds, it then says, well, how much do you want to transfer? And I would put that money into the amount. And then I would select my from. So let's say I'm putting it in from QuickBooks Cash, the main account, into one of my sub accounts, like that scholarship fundraiser. So I just want to emphasize first that you have to put money into the envelopes from QuickBooks Cash, or if I was taking money out of an envelope in order to use it, I would have to go the other way and say, hey, I'm taking it out of the envelope and putting it into the QuickBooks Cash account. Now notice here that you can also connect it to other bank accounts at other banks. So you're not limited to just inside the system. If you don't have a lot happening within QuickBooks Payments, but you want to take money out of your operating checking account to seed this fund, or maybe you have a separate savings account, but this gets higher interest, you can connect it and say, hey, I want to take money out of my savings account and put it in either the main QuickBooks Cash account or one of the envelopes. And then that way you can move money out of your standard operating checking and savings accounts and in and out of the QuickBooks Cash. So you have complete flexibility for how the money comes in and out. No, I'm not really going to do this transfer at the moment, but that's what I would do. I would click next, and then it would make the transfer and also send me a confirmation email to let me know that the transfer has been completed. Now, I want to take a minute and talk about QuickBooks Payments Merchant Services. I've mentioned it a few times, and if you're already using it, I'm sure you're a huge fan, but if you haven't started using it, this is kind of a game changer. Even if you don't use the cash flow checking bank account, everybody who uses QuickBooks Online should be connected to the merchant services. The rates are better than PayPal or Square. One of the nice things about it is that when they give you the money, they actually give you the full amount that you charge the client. Whereas PayPal and Square are a little bit harder to manage because let's say somebody pays you $100, they'll take out $631 in fees and only give you 90, what does that work out to? 93.17 actually hits your checking account, and then you have to manage what happened to those fees. So it's a lot easier to use. When you're using QuickBooks Payments, there's so much automation. You can send an invoice to the customer with a pay now button and they pay it. And when they do that, it will actually create the payment in the system, put it in undeposited funds, and then group and batch the credit card and ACH payments for you automatically. So it really reduces your work. It also speeds up your accounts receivable because if you can send an email that has the invoice in it, they're much more likely to pay it shorter. Whereas if they have to print out the PDF of the invoice and send it to their accounts payable, then send you a check, it could be months before you get paid. So you will get paid a lot faster by using it. The rates themselves, I have a short little thing about it here. I went into the rates. This is what the rates are for the merchant services. So depending on your volume, there's either a pay-as-you-go plan with no monthly fees, or if you charge maybe $5,000 to $7,000 a month, then it's worth paying the monthly fee because your rates go down, and you can see the difference in the rates right here. And so for most people that I work with, they're on the no monthly fee plan, and so their swipe rate is 2.4%. Their invoice and Apple Pay rate is 2.9%. If you type it in, then it's 3.4%. There is a transaction fee of 25 cents. And if you do an ACH electronic check, then it's 1% with a maximum of $10. So, if it's like $5,000 check, you don't pay that much money, you only pay $10. If you do have higher volume, and especially if you do in-person swiping, the monthly fee plan makes those fees plummet. Now, this is the rates that come automatically when you sign up through this system. I personally work with CarryCon at Complete Business Group, and you should call them up and tell them that I sent you from this video. And I've signed up with them, and they're actually a reseller for the merchant services. And so you can actually get cheaper rates than this. They shave money off of these prices so that you or your client gets cheaper rates. And if you're a bookkeeper signing up a client through CBG, you actually get residuals as well. I mean, it's like pennies on the dollar, but it can add up. Now, I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds about merchant services here. I do have a free class. The URL is on the screen right now. So if you go to royl.ws, which is our bit.ly for Royalwise, QBO -merchant -services, but capitalizations matter. So make sure you got the capitalizations in the right place. But if you go to the URL that you see on your screen, I have a free course completely about all the ins and outs of the merchant services. The takeaway here for what we're doing today is that the merchant services is designed to integrate to put money into your checking account right here. Now, let's talk about the cash flow planner. And this is another element of the cash flow checking account, but it's actually separate, that even if you are not doing the cash flow checking account, you can still use the cash flow planner. So let's take a look at how that works. If you don't see the cash flow planner here, then one of the places you can go to look for it is up under the gear and then in QuickBooks Labs. Now, not everybody is going to have this, but you might see the cash flow dashboard widget. And if you turn that on, then it actually puts the same cash flow planner that I'm about to talk about, not just attached to the cash flow bank account, but it puts it on your dashboard as well. So I've turned that on and I'm going to click done. And then I'm going to go back to the dashboard right here. And that gives you access right now to a new cash flow graph right at the top of your screen. But if you have cash flow on the left-hand side, then we can get there by going to the planner right here. Now, this file is a fake file. This is all sample data, so it's not real. So if you see some weird numbers, you don't have to worry about it. The first thing that I want to point out is that there's two different views. The cash balance takes you to today and then projects 2 months into the future. And the idea here is that you want to make sure that your cash flow is always going to be positive, and this tool is going to allow us to plan ahead. There's a second view for money in, money out, this little one right here, and then that shows you when your income is more than your expenses or vice versa, so that you can hopefully have all your green bars higher than your blue bars. Again, this is a fake file, so you're going to see a little bit of weird things here. You do have the ability on the left-hand side to change your date range. Now, since I even planned this course, something new is that there's now a beta for 24 months so that you can see what's happening up ahead. It is in beta. Like I said, this whole system is brand new. This is kind of version 1.0, and the more feedback you put in about it, see that little feedback up here? The more feedback you put in, the better they're going to hone it in to meet your needs. Now, whichever view you take a look at, Whichever one you're more comfortable with is fine. I'm going to go back to the cash balance. Now, when I scroll down, we have a couple alerts. One is it says that this is a safe place to play with the numbers. Your planner won't affect the rest of your QuickBooks. And so this is really just a place to play with income and expenses to see what will happen if. There's also an alert here that some predictions might not be available beyond 3 months into the future. So what are these predictions that they're talking about? Let's scroll down a little further. So first, there's an alert here about overdue transactions. So that's if you have any invoices out to customers that they have not paid yet and they're late, or if you have any bills in the system that you haven't paid yet and they're overdue, that will kind of toy with the numbers a little bit. Now below that, you can see here past transactions. So I'll drop that down, and then this shows your real transactions in the system. Today's balance, so that's kind of your starting point for where you are right now, and then coming up. And what's cool about this is notice that a lot of these are predicted. They're going to take a look at your history, and if it sees that you have the same monthly expense month after month after month, it's going to include it in the predictions so that it really understands your cash flow based on your reality. So that's nice that it sees this happening with the predictions, and that's where the information for the graph is coming up from right now. But you're not limited to just the artificial intelligence. You can also add events that you know are coming up. So, for example, let's say you're a contractor and you are about to sign off on a brand new project. Any estimates that you have in the system don't show up anywhere, but you could add that estimate in as an event. And so let's say I know that in January on the 15th is we're going to start this next job. And so I could put in, what company it's for. So I'm going to put in, I think I've got Alice all in the system here. And how much money do I expect to get from this client? So let's say this is going to be a $30,000 construction project, small but mighty. And then there's an option for whether this is a money in event or a money out event. And is it one time or is it repeating? So maybe instead of doing the 30,000, I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to be billing this $10,000 at a time, and we're going to repeat it every month. So I want this to repeat every month, and I only want it to do it 3 times. So I'm going to add an end date here and say that we're expecting to have this job done by, let's say, May 1st. And now I'll save that. And now when I go up and look at my graph, I can see the spikes for when I'm going to make that income. And now, even if nothing else happens, I can see that I'm not going to lose money there. And then same thing for any expenses. So, okay, I've got this job that I'm going to get $10,000 over 3 months, but hey, I'm going to have some expenses associated with that. So let's also put in some of the expenses that I know are going to happen. So let's say I'm going to incur, let's say $5,000 on those next 3 months. So this is going to be, I'll just call this supplies and materials, because it's going to go to multiple vendors. I'm not putting in the actuals, I'm just putting in some of my cash flow milestones. Okay, so I'm going to plan on $5,000 in materials. This is money out. And because the job is, again, over 3 different months, I'm going to say I'm going to repeat it every month. And I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to have most of the materials done by, let's say, end of March. So I'll save that. And now when I scroll up, now that I've got my materials in, I've gone back into the red again. And again, all things considered. So you can see here that you can take a look at your milestones, upcoming income, upcoming expected expenses, and take a look and plan your cash flow to make sure that you are above the line moving into the future. So here's a slide that summarizes all of the things that I just said. So that's my summary of the cash flow checking account plus envelopes in QuickBooks Online. This is Alicia Katz-Pollock, and I'll see you in the next class.